Hello and welcome back to the Premier League show. Matt's doing the intro today.
I'm not. I agreed that I'm not.
Yeah, to be
We
fair,
spoke
we did
about
just
this.
agree that I was doing the intro, but welcome all. If there's one of you, or 10 of you, or 100, imagine if there's 100 people watching right now. That'd be amazing.
Be
Um,
nervous.
but yeah,
Don't tell
welcome
them.
to this episode. It's going to be more of a review episode. We're not going to be doing any predictions today, just because it's a bit too early for the games coming up weekend after next. Although I suppose we could talk about the international fixtures, but I don't actually know them. Um,
Neither.
yeah, so we'll start off. We'll have a chat about our predictions for last weekend and how the games went. So Matt, should we just go through the list and we'll do Villa last as usual?
Take it away, Ernie. Yeah. So, first game of the weekend was Wolves Spurs, which
Oh
was a good one.
yes,
Tasty one for us. I think a good one for everyone. I feel like everyone was waiting for Spurs to lose, to be fair.
yeah. Well, they already came
Um,
off the back of that Chelsea loss.
they did,
Um,
but that was felt like an anomaly. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, crazy game away at Wolves. Um, Spurs scored in the third minute. Pretty
mm.
bog standard goal.
Yeah. I kind of panicked when that happened. I was like, oh God, it's going to be one of these classic old
Yeah,
stories where it's the system and the manager that's making them good and not the players, and
I
they're going
mean,
to
I do think it
continue.
is, to be honest, with Spurs.
Well, to an
Still think
extent, yeah,
they're good.
but I think Conte was very limiting to that side, and you can see that in the way that they're playing now. Even though it's very new to them, this system and the new manager and the new style, they sort of instantly taken to it and been a lot better. And almost every player in that system has looked double the player they
Oh
were
yeah,
previously,
yeah,
other than probably Son and Richarlison, because Richarlison is twice as good as bad, which is just really bad. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. So they scored really early on, but then they just went flat. Like they clearly were missing Madison a lot in terms of building up because they kept the ball, but they didn't really create anything.
yeah, I think
Um,
Wolves gave them a little bit too much space in that first opening few minutes where they came at them, and I mean that one shot was 0.37 xg of their zero point 0.7, I believe it was. So
yeah,
they really weren't too creative. I think Wolves were taken a little bit by surprise with the early goal, and then yeah, solidified a bit. They kind of wised up to it, and when most of your players are out like Spurs were, um, you do struggle, and they really struggled for penetration through the midfield and just couldn't create any chances. So you were always just sat there waiting, like begging Wolves to just. Well, it
yeah.
depends who you support, but yeah, we were just praying that Wolves kind of scored, and
Well,
then
yeah, it was really frustrating, man, for for nearly all of the game because Wolves, like, they got their foot in, they played really well. They were constantly getting at Spurs and exposing them. Um, but then every time they got in the final third, it was just fucking painful to watch. Like,
mm,
fuck the pass up, scuff the shot, and I was just thinking it's going to be one of those days.
yeah, it's
But
been
yeah, they
strange with
eventually.
Wolves. They've been quite up and down, haven't they? There's been a lot of good signs, but then a couple of very strange results.
Yeah, I mean that's Sheffield United last week obviously stands out, doesn't it? Because they'd had some good results before that, and then you think, well, they then just lost to bottom of the league. Um, but yeah, I think they seem to be a pretty solid team, to be honest. I think if they get bad results, it's going to be because of the fact that their their front line is quite weak in terms of putting the ball in the net. Like they've all got good qualities, but sort of like composure in front of goal and stuff like that. They're a bit lacking up top, but apart from that, they do look solid. But yeah, especially when Neto's out, they just seem to struggle to score a little bit.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to, although the defence and the midfield's reasonably solid defensively and well structured, it's kind of like a psyche thing. Once you're in a game for so long, and even if you are dominating for 60, 70 minutes, if you can't score, it
Yeah,
becomes a bit debilitating, and you start not believing
yeah,
sort of that
absolutely.
you can actually score against the team that you're playing. And then once the other team senses that, they get their tails up, and the game sort of switches a little bit. And I think that can sort of happen to Wolves sometimes, just because of that lack of final third efficiency and clinicality, if that's a word.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
but good to see him win,
uh,
and good for
yeah.
Villa.
Genuinely, they're pretty good. Very good for Villa.
Do you know what?
Yeah,
When that goal went in like literally the final second or whatever it was, I genuinely celebrated the same way I would a Villa goal.
yeah. No, honestly, I was fucking buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing. I was just thinking because I was just thinking it was just like really, really bugging me. I was just thinking. I was imagining all the scenarios. I was thinking how have Tottenham come away with 3 points here? We didn't beat Wolves away. Tottenham are going to stay top of the league. And I was just thinking, this can't happen. Like, they've played so shit. It's just like, I was thinking it's not right. It was like morally wrong that they won the game. And
Yeah.
then, yeah,
Well,
fuck, I was
they
buzzing.
they wouldn't have been top, would they? Because City did overtake them after the Chelsea result, didn't they? As in,
Yeah, by the end of the day.
as in last
No.
weekend when Spurs lost to Chelsea, City did leapfrog them, didn't they? I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then on how results went, if Tottenham had won, they would actually still be top
Oh,
because City drew.
yeah, I suppose. 'Cause- yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, shit. But
Yeah.
anyway, right.
Um,
So, well, next game. Oh crap.
so yeah. Anyway, but in
Right.
terms of predictions, we both went 2-1 Wolves on that one,
Yeah. Oh yeah, we
which
did. Couple points.
was probably a bit optimistic from both of us, but
Yeah.
came through.
I kind of envisaged what I was going to be saying right now when it was 1-1 in like the 95th minute, and I was like,
Mm.
do you know when I always say something and then it turns out to be right, and I went against it, and because I remember the first thing I said was, well, if you just said Spurs coming off this result and Wolves coming off that one, they're playing at Molineux, I'd probably say 1-1, and then I was like, but injuries, so
Yeah,
2-1. And I was
yeah,
kind of like, I was just sat there thinking, what am I going to say next week?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, came through for us. Arsenal Burnley. Um, I didn't watch this game.
You predicted 4-0, didn't you?
I went 4-0. You
Yeah.
went 3-0.
Yeah, I was
Pretty
quite annoyed with
close.
this one. Burnley scoring a bloody goal, even though they haven't scored in like however many games. Or they
Yeah, it was
did.
a bit of like a fumbled kind of nothing goal as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it fell to Josh Brownhill at the edge of the box. He smacked it and it deflected in at the near post.
Yeah, yeah.
Not the best goal ever, but they all count. So fair play to him. But I think Arsenal struggled a little bit in the first half to penetrating and actually create chances. Even the one that Trossard scored was quite scrappy.
Mm.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it, didn't we? About Arsenal struggling, looking like they're struggling a little bit in terms
a
of
little
attack. I
bit.
mean, it's
Yeah,
hard to say when they won 3-1, but yeah,
yeah. I think Burnley might have sort of shut Saka down a bit because typically, as we've mentioned last week, they do tend to overuse the right hand side, and he was still lively because it's still Bukayo Saka. He's still a great footballer and will have great output most of the time, but yeah, just couldn't quite get into those goal scoring positions or really open Burnley up. But
mm,
yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of happy I took him out my FPL for now because I reckon there's better value out there. But we'll see. We'll see. Uh,
yeah. I've done my wild card this week.
ooh,
Um,
I have to see
he's
what you do.
currently he's currently in there, but it could change. Don't
Yeah.
know.
But what was the XG in there? Was it 2 to about 0.6 or something?
0.3 for Burnley, two
Ooh,
for Arsenal. Yeah,
yeah, that is annoying. Why'd they have to
5 shots
score?
on target for Burnley, but
Yeah, that's crazy.
shit XG. I mean,
Well, XG on
four
target might have been better.
four. They had 8 shots in total. Four of them were outside the box.
Yeah,
So
that's fair enough. I was looking at stats earlier for Raya and
mm,
um, Ramsdale, and I think Raya's faced 13 shots so far this season, and Ramsdale's faced 9. That is nuts.
why? What? I don't get it.
Like just the solidarity of that Arsenal defence, how little gets
Oh, I
through.
see.
Like they've just been
Yeah.
by far and
Well,
away the best defensive side this year so far.
I saw an article or something by it was an Arsenal fan, so take it with a pinch of salt. But they were saying that Arsenal look better for a more convincing title challenge this year than last year, which goes against the narrative a little bit because I think people think that Arsenal have dropped off because maybe their attack, the way their attack looks a little bit different. But
Yeah,
yeah, the article was saying that they've sacrificed a bit of defensive, a bit of attacking output for more defensive stability with Rice in the midfield and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's an
to an
interesting one
extent,
because
they are right, but I think that defensive stability will help them in the long run because it's much easier to build from a solid base and create going forward and tinker with that and figure out ways to break through and by being unpredictable and having options. Whereas defending, there's only really one way to do it, and well, there's not. That's quite a naive thing to say. There's not really one way to do it, but the basics don't really change of how to defend.
yeah,
To be very good at defending, there's some basic principles you need to follow. But then, of course, you can change how high your line is, etc., how intensely you press in what area of the pitch. But essentially, once you've got the defence right, everything else can be built off of that. Whereas if you've got a
yeah,
great attack, like we're seeing with Brighton, it doesn't necessarily guarantee results. Although Brighton are
yeah.
slowly dropping off a little bit at the moment, I think we do have to call this a drop off now. It's like we were discussing this. Oh, well, actually, let's leave Brighton. Let's leave Brighton till later. I get carried away with these things, but yeah. I
Yeah,
well, just to finish that point, I suppose I do back Arsenal for a stronger title challenge this year than last year.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. They seem to have identified what went wrong last year, and maybe it was a little bit of naivety in terms of managing games and being a bit too vulnerable at the back. And yeah, identified that and tried to show themselves up a little bit. Which maybe if they can if they can keep up these kind of performances where they're kind of just efficient, really, then maybe we'll see them on for a better challenge. But way too early to say, really.
Yeah, well, they're after Man City in terms of style of play, they're holding the most possession. They're playing nice, slow, methodical football, keeping the ball, so they're not giving the opposition much of a chance to attack them. Then, when the opposition are attacking them, they're pressing intensely. They're getting the ball off them quickly, and then they've got kind of like in the style of Man City, they've got big defenders. You got like Ben White as well, who's in at fullback, Tomiyasu. So they've got a lot of height, a lot of strength defensively from that perspective. You've got Declan Rice coming in there, Partey as backup.
Yeah,
So there is definitely a strong base there, and as well, I think I heard a stat. I can't remember where I heard it, but David Raya is apparently uh, catching 20% of crosses that come into the box. That's not 20% of the ones he attempts. That's 20% of all the crosses coming into the box, and supposedly that is like far and above any other goalkeeper. So
mm.
really interesting to see that that's kind of like a potentially a major factor in at least for set plays and crosses and things how they're managing to get such a low xG conceded and yeah,
Yeah,
really dominating defensively.
yeah. Well, interestingly, Martinez is brilliant at claiming crosses. Like one of his best attributes as a goalkeeper, I think. And I read today that Villa have the third least shots faced in the league. Don't know whether it's shots on target, shots off target, or what. But yeah, obviously a fucking good attribute, underrated attribute in a goalkeeper when they can just deny opportunities altogether by claiming balls early on.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, I think overall shots faced probably comes down to a few other factors as well, but
Yeah, of course, yeah, but I think
yeah,
claiming
it's
crosses is
definitely
definitely underrated when it comes to goalkeepers because you can just prevent so many second ball opportunities that teams get when your keeper's just solid in the box.
yeah, no, really, it's definitely true. Next game, so we both get 1 point for that, so that's 3 points so far.
Yeah, two correct results on that. Palace Everton.
Oh, I got this one so wrong. I need,
Yeah, both got this one wrong. I went for a draw. You went for a Palace win.
yeah,
I mean, tough one to predict, really.
yeah. Palace have been really strong at home. Everton have been really strong defensively. So, a ball draw could have been something to happen. Crystal Palace have been strong defensively at home as well.
Yeah, fuck, I don't think
But
anyone saw that many goals in the game, at least.
yeah, no, absolutely not. Some great goals as well. Decore had a great game.
Takura's good, man.
Eze was playing amazing. Um, what game? I think Palace did edge it on XG, which you probably expect in a home game. They had the possession, they had the
Yeah,
crowd behind them, and with two teams that do like to play that sort of deep defensive counter-attacking style. I think Palace less so, but just based on the quality of player in their squad, they do kind of force themselves into playing that deep block. But they're not necessarily a fast counter-attacking team. But I'd say they generally play that way more so than not. So it was quite interesting to see another 3-2 result from
mm,
two teams like we saw with uh, what was it? Who was Brentford, West Ham? And I said that set a precedent for
yeah,
low block teams when they come up against each other. Someone goes for it, and the other has to. And yeah, we saw two results ending up that way. One paid off massively for me, so but we'll get on to
yeah,
that. Yeah, so
yeah. No, it was weird. It did kind of play out like you said, like sometimes if two teams with that similar style come up against each other, there seems to be goals in them at the moment for whatever reason.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, based on the XG, it seems like Everton were a little bit lucky, but it's hard to say because I didn't watch the game. But I think the thing with both of these teams as well, and the reason it's so hard to call is that they're both unpredictable in terms of their results. Like Palace have had some great results, and then some games they've just not turned up. Same with Everton, especially at home, which is weird.
yeah,
So it was a bit of a tough one to call because both of these teams are capable of being really good on their day and also capable of just not turning up at all.
yeah. It really is like the as we were saying last week. It's like Super Burnley when you watch Everton. It's like same style, same strengths, but just better players, better version of
Yeah,
it.
I mean, like I look at their squad and I think like I get why everyone was saying that they're a big contender to go down, but I did feel like with Sean Dyche and those players, there's definitely potential for like a Burnley style situation where he just gets his system in place, and as long as he's got like big centre backs and decent wingers and a big striker, like Sean Dyche kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
Um, and they have actually got some pretty decent players in there, really. So
yeah. Well, of course, there's always short-term biases on these things, and we did devalue that squad based on their recent performances. I think if you took each player in that squad for their value at the highest point in their career, then you perhaps look at it a little bit differently. But when you see that kind of trend of them finishing 18th or sorry not 18th, 17th or 16th every season, well 2 seasons in a row, you just kind of start to devalue what they have, and potentially that can be a bit naive sometimes. Like we started to devalue what we had, when
yeah, yeah.
Gerrard
I
started
mean,
underperforming, and
everyone was like hating on McGinn, and now he's the best player in the league.
well, I might be a Villa fan, but I'm not going to say he's the best player in the league.
Well, you're not a real Villa fan,
um,
and you're also wrong.
well, actually, Ezri Konsa is the best player in the league. So he's also played the most minutes in the league, along with I think like 9 other players,
Yeah, that doesn't
which is
surprise me.
interesting.
Consistent guy.
But you know what did surprise me? Mbuemo and Bruno Fernandes have played joint most minutes in the league, along with I think like 7 or 8 defenders. So it
Hmm.
says a
Yeah,
lot
Bruno
about
doesn't
their
surprise me because he's always consistent and he
yeah.
doesn't seem to get injured. But Mbuemo, you'd expect being like his style of play, you'd expect him to come off now and then, but no,
Mm.
apparently not.
Well, he's just that important to Brentford. I think
Yeah,
possibly a good FPL shout.
yeah, I've got him in my current wildcard draft. He's in
Got to get him in there.
enemies as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Everton look pretty good, really, don't they? I think the difference from the very start of the season as well, when everyone was saying the squad's terrible, they did sign Jack Harrison, who I don't even know if he's been that good, but like I was looking at a few of their signings, like McNeil played at Burnley.
Yeah,
Harrison's the kind of winger that Dyche likes, and it was like the types of signings they were making. He's clearly planning for a certain style of play that he's known for making work.
yeah,
So
absolutely. And
Yeah,
I mean,
looking
defensively,
decent.
as I was saying earlier, they are quite good. They've actually, I think they're fourth or fifth lowest XG against in the league. So
Really. Yeah,
they're
yeah. I
really
mean,
solid, and you could probably expect that from Dyche.
yeah, he knows what he's doing, doesn't he? And they have again like signed Tarkovsky, player he had at Burnley. He's got his players that he likes and knows works in his system. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think I have to finally kind of lift the lid on my sort of limitation of Everton. I think, and say maybe
I
they're
think
not
yeah, might be
terrible.
time. Yeah, I mean, everyone was making that prediction. I didn't think they'd be as bad as you thought they'd be, just because your reasoning was that they keep making terrible decisions in terms of transfers and managers and stuff, and it's like that's the kind of cycle that usually leads a team to go down, which does check out. But I think the difference for me was that they made one really really good decision, and that was getting Sean Dyche. And I think
Yeah, I think part of
that's the
it was as
difference, really.
well at the end of last season, although they did improve by the eye test, results didn't really improve, and they only just scraped that sort of relegation battle. And
Yeah.
so I thought, with the business so far that they had done and the financial struggles they had, I just didn't see a way of them improving unless Sean Dyche does just have that summer to work with the players and just improves it.
Mm.
That was the only way it was really going to happen, and
I mean,
fair
to be
play to him, he's done
fair,
it.
if the teams around the bottom of the league were stronger, you know, Everton, they'd still be in more trouble than they are at the moment. Like they've only got 14 points. They're not that far away from the relegation zone, and the bottom three are especially weak this year.
Yeah,
Um, so they like, you don't want to go crazy. They've not been incredible, but they just look a bit more solid and a bit more likely to escape that relegation battle than maybe we thought.
yeah, a bit more lively as well with players going forward. Just so much physicality and energy when they do counter
Yeah,
attack. They just try
I
and
mean, I
overwhelm
remember
you.
like playing Dyche's Burnley when Villa would play Dyche's Burnley. It was just like they were always the worst games to watch because they'd always get stuck in. They'd always cause you problems. They'd always frustrate you defensively.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Um,
unfortunately, none of us get
so
points for that one. So on to the next one.
no, both got that one wrong. United Luton.
Yeah, I mean,
So 1-0 United. We both went for a United win. I went 3-1. You went 2-1.
mm,
Um, Again, I kind of expected United to perform at home, and I mean, I didn't watch the game. Underlying numbers suggest that they did actually play all right, but it's hard to say really.
yeah, I mean, if you don't watch the game, what can you say? You can only look at those sort of top line numbers. I think
Yeah, I mean,
just
Hoyland had
looking
some
at
good
it,
chances.
yeah, just looking at it from perspective of like who actually scored the goal, being a defender, and the fact you only
Yeah,
won 1-0 at home to Luton,
yeah. I mean, it
kind
doesn't
of
look great, does
tells a
it?
story of the same problem sort of thing. Um, Nothing's really changed. But then the XG does say, well, they must have put some good patterns of play together. Whether that means much for United's trajectory, I don't really know. I
No.
think their underperformance this year has sort of quietly overshadowed the fact that they are now, is it sixth in the league?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of annoyingly high up the table. Yeah, they're behind us, 4 points
Yeah,
behind us, which is like ridiculous considering the feeling around Man United and the feeling around Villa, and the fact that there's 4 points between us is a bit
yeah.
crazy.
Well, he's got more points in his first 50 games than Arteta and Klopp both did in their 10 years at Liverpool and Arsenal,
Yeah,
respectively. So while maybe it's not looking great on the pitch or players are underperforming based on the fees paid and the expectations, they're still getting reasonable results. And we did say that against Fulham. United do tend to do this where they look like shit, but they just nip a goal here and there. And
yeah,
I guess that 12th man at Old Trafford often gets them through games as well.
yeah. And I mean, Ten Hag's clinging on to the fact that he actually had a really, really good first season. To be fair, considering that
Mm.
United was like a big rebuild job, and he came into a team with like Cristiano Ronaldo in it. Um, like third last season and a trophy was a really good season, and so it's given him a bit of leeway. And yeah, they just grind out results somehow. It's not enough for me to like predict whether they're, yeah, like you say, like their trajectory is still pretty up in the air. I think because the performances are not convincing.
Yeah,
But
and when they
you
are
got to
playing
say
better
they
teams,
got a lot of injuries in defence as well.
yeah,
So don't know.
yeah. But I mean, even then, when they are playing better teams, even with a decent amount of the squad available, they still haven't been performing. So you kind of have to
Yeah,
look at them and go, they just seem like one of those sort of upper mid-table teams that beat the shit ones but can't beat the good ones, and seem to,
you would think so. Yeah, based on their
yeah,
performances, because it's like this game they got a lot of XG. A lot of it came from one Hoyland chance, 0.7. I mean, I watched the highlights. I don't remember the chance, but that's a stinker.
yeah.
Um,
He's been scoring in the Champions League as well. It's weird that he's not managed to translate that into Premier League form.
yeah, I think he's kind of one of those players where he he's very intense and very direct, and sometimes he comes onto a ball too fast because he's like too eager to get there.
Yeah,
He's probably like he's young. He's just got to learn that little bit of composure.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, everything I've read around the game just suggests that again United weren't exactly convincing, basically, which is the worrying thing for them because yeah, like you say, they seem to be able to beat the worst teams, but their performances aren't convincing. And if they're not convincing against better teams, then they will struggle eventually.
yeah. No, absolutely.
Um,
I think if they can get it together, someone like Hoyland in a couple years' time is going to look great.
oh
Um,
yeah, I've got no doubt that he's a good player.
yeah, and
Um,
Rashford, like when Rashford comes back to his best as well, I think they'll
yeah,
they'll start going from just nicking results to sort of maybe they won't even play necessarily that good. Maybe they'll play it to a similar level, but just Rashford being on form will pull them through against better and better sides, and
yeah,
they'll
yeah. I
just
mean, that's
keep
the thing.
nicking
Like they've
results.
as iffy as they can look, they've also got insane quality in the team. So they're one of those teams where, uh, yeah, it only really takes a couple of chances. If Rashford's on form, it only takes one chance. If Fernandez plays well, they don't need much in a game when you've got like that quality of player.
Yeah, it kind of worries me in terms of when we play them. Not
Yeah,
necessarily that I think they'll just dominate us and beat us or anything like that, but just those odd times where we do let teams in behind us. I think they will possibly just have the quality to finish, um, which worries me a little bit. But at the same time, you know, we have been by far and away the best team. Not by far and away the best team from direct attacks. I think we're a little bit ahead of Liverpool in terms of how many direct attacks we're getting, and build-up attacks we're reasonably good as well. And we've got the second highest open play XG in the league, so we're showing very good signs as well. So when I say worried, I guess I just mean nervous that we might not
yeah,
win,
that's it. It's
or
nervous.
that it
Yeah,
might be a bit of a tricky game. But yeah, you just have to back them against the small teams really because they just keep doing it. So
yeah.
yeah, that's what I'll do. I think all
Um,
my games that for United until they stop winning 1-0, I'm just gonna predict that they win 1-0.
yeah, it's probably not a bad shout to be fair. Yeah. Um,
So yeah, point
so
each for us there.
yeah, both got a
For
point. And then we've got Bournemouth Newcastle,
yeah,
which was a surprise.
very very surprising. Although I went into this game not realizing the injury crisis that had ensued. So I was just kind of sat there thinking, why? What's going on here? why? Why can't they play football? Um, Not realizing that it was like I didn't recognise half the people on the pitch, or if I did, I hadn't seen them there for about 6 months. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was interesting. And while Newcastle weren't at their best, they definitely weren't, the worst team in the league on that day. They weren't terrible. So the fact that Bournemouth played as well as they did, opened Newcastle up as much as they did, and looked so comfortable, is quite impressive on their hand as well.
yeah. Well, I think Bournemouth they've looked really dodgy at times, and there's been some games where like I've been consistently predicting their results to be all right, and they kept kind of losing. But the reason I quite often back them in a game is because whenever I've seen them play, they've passed the eye test. They seem to have a good structure. They keep the ball quite well. It's not really been coming together for them in attack, but like they've always created some decent chances. And Solanke's actually playing quite well. He's got 6 goals in the league this season.
Yeah, that's his best tally so far, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, he's like 3rd or 4th top scorer in the league at the moment. I think defensively is where they've been struggling, but yeah, they've passed the eye test, and then when they're playing at home, it gives them a bit more confidence to keep the ball and play their own game. So I went for a draw. Didn't think they'd beat Newcastle.
But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, surprising one.
Yeah, well, I think we could take lessons from this weekend that sometimes injuries do make a big difference when it comes to Spurs and Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think this is. I might have mentioned this in the podcast last week, but this is something that we benefit from, touch wood, with Emery, is that he has done the Europe thing loads of times, and he knows the toll it can take on people in terms of injuries and fatigue. And I think also the fact that we're in the conference, like Newcastle playing the Champions League, they've got games against PSG. They're obviously playing their first 11, and it's intense games, whereas it's a little bit different for us in the conference. But I think we've got an advantage over like Spurs. Actually, Spurs aren't in Europe, are they? Over Brighton and Newcastle. Their managers aren't experienced with doing the Thursday, Sunday.
I think De Zerbi is, to an extent. I think Sassuolo did make some kind of European appearance in the past few years. Right. I'm not sure if De Zerbi was there and managed them through that. I believe he probably would have been, but I don't have the facts to back that up. But I would have thought he had at least maybe one Conference League or Europa League season or something.
Right.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, but either way, Emery's super experienced at doing it, and I think that gives us a big advantage in terms of managing our squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we can see with him is often we will look like we're playing quite a low intensity, at least in the first half a lot of Premier League games, especially at home, and perhaps that's something that he's doing intentionally because although we are rotating a little bit for these Conference League games, it's largely a starting 11 squad still for the majority of them. I think the first one against Legia Warsaw was the largest number of changes, and we saw what happened there.
There's been a decent bit of rotation, but still...
I mean, even against Zrinjski, I think it was only 3 or 4 changes sort of thing, something like that, maybe 5.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's still quite a technical thing, I think. There's probably a lot that comes into it in terms of how many players have run so far in how many games, and they probably manage it not just from a kind of play style point of view, but also perhaps a data perspective as well. But
probably
you'd have to ask Emery, I suppose, directly. I'm not sure if he'd tell you or not. But
no, I think it's a good point about the intensity. Like I've definitely thought about it because I think in a press conference against it was one of the conference games where we struggled. Might have been the one we went to against the what are they called?
Zrinjski Mostar.
Or it might have been Legia where we lost. But I think he spoke about intensity and he spoke about how we wanted to win the game earlier on so that we can drop off the intensity in the second half, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's clearly in his mind. It's another thing that kind of comes into his experience where he will want to play with less intensity in games where he can get away with it to manage the squad. Whereas a team like Newcastle, they already play with an incredibly intense style. Eddie Howe, I'm sure Eddie Howe is aware of these things, but maybe not quite as adept at implementing that kind of change in intensity midway through games. And also, again, they're playing games against Dortmund and PSG where the intensity is already a lot higher.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of factors when it comes to injuries and stuff. Like a lot of it is just luck and stuff. But
Yeah. Well, I was thinking a little bit about this sort of stuff earlier today, and my thought on it was I think you always have to prioritise the league. Always, always,
yeah,
always. Because the thing is with the league, that's your kind of your, let's say that's your bread and butter, that's your main income. If let's say I'm a person and I've got multiple income streams or whatever, and I don't know if this is going to be a good analogy, it's just off the cuff, but that's your main income stream, right? That's your day in, day out, what you do. So
hmm
you need that to be at the best level it possibly can be. And then if you're going to start diversifying, you build those up slowly in a way that you can manage. I think if you straight away go pick up another job and you try and do that at 100% intensity at the same time as you're already doing your main work, your main job, you are going to burn
mm,
out and you are going to struggle. You have to build up to it,
yeah,
and you have to develop the sort of facilities to do that. Although in this
it
case
did
the
come quite
facilities
soon for
are,
Newcastle, didn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we spoke about this in terms of how people perceive their level of performance, and when they don't win games, some people have said they're a Champions League side now, and I'm like, well, yes, they are in the Champions League, but that doesn't make them a nailed-on Champions League side like some people suggest they are.
Yeah,
So it is a strange scenario for them. But the thing is, you've got, yeah, as I was saying, you've got to keep the Premier League the main priority, because if you can build and build and build on your Premier League performances season on season, then you can provide that stability both financially and on the pitch to attract more players and reinvest and enable you to then compete on more fronts. I
mm,
think it can be a bit like I don't know, like a bit too much risk trying to win, for example, the Champions League in your first season in it, just to create an incredible story. Because if it goes wrong, you're out of the Champions League potentially, both from a league and winning it capacity. Well, actually,
yeah.
do you even get qualified for the Champions League the next year if you win it, or is it just
I
like?
think you do.
Because I know you do
I
from the
mean,
Europa League, but I'm not sure if that's
it'd be
implemented
pretty
into the
harsh if you
Champions
didn't,
League.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Um,
but
yeah, no,
yeah,
you're right though. It's like they need to prioritize stability and structure. Really, like if you're being sensible about building a club and trying to establish yourself as a top four side, then you have got to prioritize stability and the long term, and that is prioritizing the league.
yeah.
Um,
Because you can see if we dropped out, say we put too much effort into each Europa Conference League game, and we started dropping off in the Premier League, we're putting all our eggs in the winning the Conference League basket then, to
mm,
potentially get Europe in general, not just performing well in European competitions like Europa League and Champions League, just to get Conference League in itself. We're hedging all our bets on
yeah,
essentially winning the Conference League. And if you don't win the
yeah,
Conference League, you could be out of Europe altogether, right? And then you're sat there with a upper mid-table squad with the likes of Moussa Diaby, uh, Yuri Tielemans, Pau Torres, Ollie Watkins, all these players that perform so well, but if they don't get over the line because you misprioritise where you put their energy and intensity, then you've got the likes of Arsenal and City and that could just pick them off, and we wouldn't really have much of a say in
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Obviously, the project's still there, and the money's still there, the ideas are still there, Unai's still there. Hopefully, even in that scenario, and you might keep the majority, especially as they're very recent signings. But there is that risk. So as you can
yeah.
see
And
with our
like
season, yeah. Oh, sorry, you go.
football moves so fast that one off season you can actually really suffer from it, because there's like, especially in the Premier League, there's four other teams who are just as ambitious as you, who could get the manager that you would have signed had you finished higher in the league, or they're poaching the player that you can't keep now because you finished outside of Europe, kind of thing. Like, things change so quickly.
Yeah,
A bad league finish can derail you a little bit, even if you get a semi-final in Europe or a final in Europe or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's knockout football as well. Anything can happen. Football's weird. Like, sometimes you lose a game, you do nothing wrong, but you lose a game, and that can be the end of your European competition. Whereas in the league, you've got 38 chances to finish, as high as you possibly can. And obviously, that's giving you a lot better chance. If you can be consistent in the league, you're giving yourself a lot better chance of success rather than hedging, like you say, hedging your bets and putting everything into Europe, where things can change on the flip of a coin because it's knockout format.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, if you are prioritising the league and you're putting most of your weekly effort and resources into, and both from a coaching and analysis point of view into that, you're going to have a much better understanding of the way teams play that you're playing on a regular basis. And the thing is, if you put all that effort aside into European competition, you then come to a situation where you've got all this knowledge and sort of understanding about this opponent you're going to play that you might never play again. So while
True,
it's
yeah.
great to prepare for those individual games, putting emphasis on your league form is always the way to go, in my opinion. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's why Newcastle
I mean, it's hard for
fallen off.
Newcastle, really, isn't it? Because like obviously injuries are a lot of it's bad luck, and like Champions League. If we were playing PSG at home, like I'm pissed off if we're playing Leon Bailey over Diaby. Do you know what I mean?
Well, in his current form, maybe not. There are
Not in
people
his current
talking
form,
about
no.
Musa Diaby getting
But
dropped for
but yeah,
Tottenham
it is
game.
it is
So
tough just with the prestige of the Champions League.
yeah,
It's a little bit harder to rotate, but yeah. So shit result for Newcastle. Good for us. They might be in a bit of trouble. I haven't looked at their fixtures, but I don't know. They could be in a bit of trouble with the injury situation.
yeah. I've still got
Um,
trips in my lineup, but I'm not sure if that's even a good idea anymore.
yeah, so yeah, again, I thought about him, but I think he's played on the left the last couple of games to cover for
Burn.
their injuries.
Yeah.
And while he's still on set pieces, he's not as useful in attack from the left. So
Mm.
and then defensively they're thin as well. So I don't know. Um,
Yeah, it could be
so
tricky.
we got
It's good
Brighton,
for
Sheffield
us.
United.
It's very good for us. West Ham faltering a bit, Brighton faltering, Newcastle faltering, Spurs now look
Yeah,
like they're dropping off, but we just feel like we're getting better and better. And I
it's a
suppose
prime opportunity, man.
not to keep going on about it, but that just kind of goes back to the point of if you just focus on the league and keep improving and improving and improving,
Mm.
every season becomes your new benchmark, you know. And we've done that. We've had the near relegation, then we've had the 11th. We had a bit of a blip with Gerrard, but let's not talk about that. Because every time I think back to like Dean Smith and Gerrard, and looking at Unai Emery now, I'm like Dean Smith was great, but not as good as Unai, you know. And then you look at Gerrard, and I'm like, what were we thinking? That was
I know it's
horrendous.
just like it's a big stain on actually quite a good, like from the moment we hired Dean Smith, we were on like a really good trajectory. We suddenly started making all the right signings. We seemed to get all the right background people in. We had the right manager for the time. It's like a beautiful upward trajectory. And then you finally get to that point where you're thinking maybe Dean Smith is not the guy. We've got the players in place now to start going a little bit further. And then fucking Steven Gerrard happens.
Yeah,
It's just like,
starts going
oh, fuck.
backwards. But anyway, we'll save more of this stuff for when we talk about Villa. We're bringing Villa too much into this so far. Uh,
Yeah, so yeah, skip the Villa game, and another good result for Villa
yeah.
was Brighton, Sheffield United.
Oh yeah. God, I was kind of upset that they didn't win because I predicted 4-0 and I did
You
have
did, yeah.
Dingra in my side. But Dingra did score and got 3 bonus points, so he kind of levelled it out for me a bit. I was
Mm.
kind of like, well, I won't get the prediction points, but at least Fancy's doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy just from a Villa perspective, really.
Yeah, I
Don't
suppose.
have any. I did have Matoma actually, but fuck it, whatever. Villa comes first in these things.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, Brighton had a red card, which changed the game. Sheffield United got themselves back into the game from that point. Was pretty dominant by Brighton before then, but not hugely dominant in terms of chances.
Yeah, not their usual selves. I mean, overall it was only 1.5. I don't know how much of that came before the red card, but
I
you
think almost all of
typically,
it, to be fair. But
yeah, you typically expect them to put up at least 2 plus at home, especially when you're talking about a team bottom of the league almost with the worst
yeah,
defence, joint worst defence in the league, if not worst.
yeah,
Um, you're expecting like 3+ xG, and at least a couple goals from a team like Brighton. So
Yeah.
yeah, very very surprising to see that happen. Because even with the red card, I'm still thinking, does a 10-man Brighton, as good as they've looked at times, beat Sheffield United? I'm probably saying 8 out of 10 times they probably do. But
Yeah, I mean they're a goal up at that point, so I think I'd agree. Like I would back 10-man Brighton to at least keep the majority of the ball. I'd expect them to come under a bit of pressure, maybe Sheffield United to create a few chances, but I'd at least expect them to keep the ball and see the game out probably with like half an hour to go,
yeah,
or actually it was 20 minutes, 20 minutes to go. I'd back Brighton, but yeah, seems yeah they didn't really control the game at all after that point.
yeah, Sheffield
Um,
United had all the momentum, all the pressure, all the XG, all the
mm,
shots. It was good to see though, I suppose, from Sheffield United that when given the opportunity, they can take the game by the scruff of the neck and win it. And
yeah,
obviously they didn't win the game, but in that period where they had that advantage, they did take full
yeah,
advantage of it.
yeah. I mean, considering how their season's gone so far, they've got to take every bit of confidence they can get. I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard to say that like they're still not a great team, but clearly they've got players who have got something about them going forward, who can create, who can bring some intensity, and if they can mix that with a bit of confidence, then they can maybe start grinding out a few more results.
yeah. Do you know what annoys me the most is this was the one, like, sort of the biggest sort of example you can put forward of me deciding to go against my principles of predicting what's been happening to keep happening. And I said, well, it's Sheffield United and it's Brighton, come on.
Yeah,
And what do you know? They go and draw again. So I just need to shut up, basically.
yeah. I mean, it is. It is. The thing is, like they beat Ajax in midweek 2-0.
Yeah, it's so
Um,
weird.
so while Brighton have been drawing in the league, they played Ajax midweek. Ajax aren't great at the moment,
Yeah,
but
they are. They're not
they
as good
played
as
a.
AZ at the moment, and we smashed AZ.
But they're probably better than Sheffield United.
Are
Um,
you sure?
well, yeah, I don't know actually. I actually don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, that's gonna
But
piss
yeah,
off a
anyway,
bunch of
they
people.
come off a good win in Europe. So you would expect them
Yeah,
to beat Sheffield United, but
there you go. No,
they didn't.
is no points for either of us, or did you went for a one, did
No,
you?
I went 2-0 Brighton. I
2-0.
thought I thought about it 'cause, I don't know if you remember in the pod, but I was like thinking about it, and then I went to write something down, and I went, no, no, that's
Yeah.
stupid, that's
Well, I
ridiculous,
did
and I
put
almost went for a
forward
draw.
the suggestion that, like we were speaking about last week, that Brighton might have fallen off a bit here, and we might be seeing like
Mm,
a sort of, not them reversing to the mean necessarily, because they do still produce good underlying numbers, but just seeing that perhaps a lack of quality. Not They can't necessarily replace those players perfectly every time. While they can probably do it better than most other teams, if not any other team in the league, on a consistent basis, uh, it's not a guarantee. Everyone falters,
no,
and
yeah.
it looks like Brighton are having a pretty big. Uh, what's the opposite of a purple patch? A brown patch at the moment. So, yeah, good for Villa.
Yeah,
Probably not good for the league, but you know, we'll see how
I
it goes.
mean, I expect them to come back into it. To be fair, I think
Yeah,
all teams, like if teams don't have these brown patches, um, like for a team to finish top four, you need to be one of those teams that actually doesn't really have extended periods of poor results. Like you might have one or two in a row, or you might have one here, one there. But to finish like top 4 or 5, you need to be extremely consistent. The
yeah,
teams that usually finish sixth to like eighth, ninth are still really good teams. Brighton is still a good team, like you say. Their numbers are still really good. They're still playing good football, but if they were at the level where they weren't having these little patches, little extended periods of poor form, then they'd be like a top 4 or 5 team. So
yeah.
um,
I think 10th to 7th is that kind of nice little bracket where you get smaller teams with a great style of play, great philosophies, sort of overperforming perhaps the level of their squad and the size of their club, and then you also get the sort of big boys, when they drop off and they're playing shit football, or the squad
Yeah,
harmony's not there, or something's going wrong behind the scenes, you see, we've seen Chelsea and United and even Liverpool and Spurs drop into that area. So it's quite a fun part of the league, that where you'd never know who's going to end up there.
it
It could
is.
be
Yeah, I
anyone.
mean,
Yeah.
we experienced it last season where it suddenly became apparent that we could potentially like finish sixth in the league, and then suddenly that whole, like you say, sixth to 10th or something is really tight and really competitive, and then towards the end of the season, like you say, you've got teams like Man United, Chelsea in that bracket, and then you've also got teams like Brentford in that bracket, and it's all tight and it's all gets really spicy towards the end of the season.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. Although,
Yeah, let's hope we can avoid it this season.
yeah, let's hope we can avoid some brown patches.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
just thought of what that actually sounds like you're talking about, and
oh god, yeah, fuck, what are we saying? It's disgusting. What are we saying? Why didn't I notice?
yeah, no,
Ridiculous.
let's not talk about that
Oh
anymore.
god,
So yeah, no points for us in that one. But on to the next.
no. Liverpool, Brentford.
Yeah, ugh, good,
Mm.
good and bad, good and bad.
Yeah, we both got this result right. I got the score right on this one,
Yeah, you
which
fucking
is probably a bit fortunate on my behalf. To be fair, I think. I mean, Liverpool were fairly dominant in terms of the ball, but I mean, I think I underestimated the potential for Brentford to just create chances. They've just got fucking
yeah.
decent counter attacks.
They're giant killers, man.
Um,
That's what they're made for.
they are, yeah, like away games. They love it against big teams.
I think if Ivan Toney
Um,
was in the squad for this one, might not have even seen a Liverpool win. To be fair.
Oof, big call.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the shots, the XG, it was just down to players being clinical, and if Ivan
Kind of,
Toney is
yeah.
anything, he's clinical.
Although to be
Um,
fair, I think a lot of Brentford's shots and XG came from set plays, which is obviously perfectly legitimate way to score goals,
yeah.
but maybe a little less reliable than open play goals. And while they did create a lot of XG, they did pump the balls into the box. They had 8 corners. Liverpool only had 6, which is kind of mad for a home game for Liverpool to have less corners than
Well, it's
their
because
opponent. I think
10 of their 17 shots were on target, so they probably got rebounded out or went in the goal.
yeah, to be fair. But yeah, Brentford, yeah, they just couldn't find the net, but they had chances,
Yeah, it was
for
it
sure.
was unfortunately one I didn't watch. I wish I had. Looked like it was a really fun game, but
Yeah, no, I had it on. It was on the same time as the Villa game, wasn't it?
yeah, I think there
Um,
were 3 or 4 games on at the same time on Sky.
yeah,
So
I had it up. I was kind of flicking back and forth, but I mean, Liverpool did look good. They generally controlled the play, but Brentford were dangerous. They were always a threat. It just happened that Liverpool basically had better players on the pitch,
yeah,
and they
pretty
did
much.
defend the set pieces quite well. It was kind of scary. Brentford maintained pressure really well with set pieces. Like there was a period where Brentford had like 4 corners in a row or something, and they really kept pressure on with the set pieces. But Liverpool did defend them quite well, and that's the thing with set pieces is that while they are a good tool to score goals from, you can't really dominate a game if you're relying on set piece. Obviously, Brentford aren't going out to dominate the game, but it was Liverpool kind of. I felt like after Brentford had thrown the ball in the box from corners and set plays so many times, Liverpool gained the confidence, and you kind of just got the feeling that actually Liverpool are defending them really well, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think you can put that down to experience as well. Like when
Yeah,
Liverpool have been in these super high tension ties in Champions League finals and semi-finals and things, once you've done that so many years in a row, players just get used to the pressure and being,
yeah,
not in control of games but still hanging in there. Real Madrid show it better than anyone. Just they can get
yeah.
completely dominated but still be completely comfortable because they know,
Yeah, it's that
do these
mentality,
basic
isn't it?
things right and just believe in your defensive capabilities, and there will be chances coming at some
Yeah,
point. And
yeah, yeah.
so
It's a good point. I think it's
yeah,
the same with almost the same with Liverpool, where you said it was like belief in your defensive capabilities. I think with Liverpool and Real Madrid as well, it's belief in their attacking capabilities. Like
Yeah,
Liverpool have always been one of them teams where no matter how late it is in the game, whether they're 1-0 down, whether they're drawing a game, you always feel like, and Liverpool always back themselves to get a goal. Same with Real Madrid. It's like part of the reason they can sustain pressure and stuff like that is that they don't have that anxiety about if we concede here, we're not getting back into the game. It doesn't even come into their mind. It's like that anxiety is completely lifted because they're one of those teams where they will always back themselves to score as well.
yeah. Like if Klopp has to, he'll win a game 4-3. He doesn't care. Like
Yeah,
his principles allow for that, and to an
yeah,
extent, so do Emery's. And I'll come on to that a little bit more when we talk about Villa. But anyway, yeah, 2 points for you, a point for me. So relatively good game week so far, I believe. Next one is
West Ham, Forest.
precedent. Yeah. So yeah, and that I was glad I didn't think about this one, and that I just went 3-2 because it paid
Yeah,
off. First bonus point of the
yeah. I
season.
mean, bloody mental game, really.
Yeah, do you know what
Um,
was hilarious? Was when what's his name, Elanga, in the 60th minute, decided to rip his shirt off after scoring
I saw that.
the 2-1 goal.
What the
Then all of
fuck?
his training gear as well, like he'd just won a final or something. I was just kind of like,
Yeah,
you've
bit
already had
premature.
goal contributions in the league so far. Is this really that mad? Like, what's
Yeah,
even
don't
if it
know.
was your debut goal, like, I wouldn't do that. What's up?
Not in the 60th minute. I feel like you can only get your shirt off if you've won a game, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But even then, like
Like,
these days, it doesn't
get
really
off if
happen
there's
until
30 minutes
it's
to go.
yeah. But as I was saying, like even then, it doesn't really happen until it's a final or something, or like a
No,
knockout game
yeah. Yeah,
these
yeah, I did
days.
see that. It was weird.
So strange.
Yeah.
But Aina being useful again. Maybe he's a good backup right back. Maybe, maybe. Two
Well,
footed.
yeah. How old is he?
I don't know. I think maybe like 24. I'd take
Yeah,
him at Villa, based on how he's playing
yeah.
at the moment as a backup.
I mean, that is probably an area where we could do with one of them signings where it's not going to improve our level, but they're just good for backup.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
quality.
he is good. I was thinking about him for my FPL as well because Forest fixtures are quite good.
Yeah. Speaking of
Um,
FPL, James Ward-Prowse had a big influence in this game. Pretty much showing why they bought him. It's made so much sense if
yeah,
you really think about it. You've got a
yeah,
big side who
yeah,
love set pieces. They love scoring
yeah. He's the
headers.
perfect player for them, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, I mean we said this before a few episodes ago, but I think everyone knows it. Everyone can see it, and it just
Yeah.
gives them that lifeline in games where they know they don't necessarily need to completely dominate the opposition. If they can get a few
Mm.
corners, they give themselves a very good chance of getting a couple goals.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. Forest were 2-1 up. The game was very even. Um, that quite easily could have finished as a draw,
Mm.
but West Ham got 2 goals from corners, I think it was, or 2 goals from set pieces anyway,
Yeah, yeah. I think it
and won
was
the
two
game.
corners. It was Bowen and Suchek. I
Yeah,
was quite
yeah,
surprised to see
yeah. I
Bowen score
mean,
ahead of there, but good for the
yeah, I
FPL.
know. Weird. I mean, I guess it was just good positioning. He's on the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, supposedly they might be using him at striker soon, which would be very interesting. He's played decent
I
there
think
before.
I don't know whether he might have started this game at striker because Antonio didn't start.
Yeah.
I actually don't. I mean, look, I think he will have played this game up front
Yeah.
because they played Ward-Prowse, Alvarez, Paqueta, and Souček. So I think Paqueta was probably playing number 10,
Yeah.
or
But yeah.
Souček number 10,
I think.
Paqueta sort of in a
Well, I think
wide
maybe it was like a
playmaker
box
role.
midfield potentially.
Yeah. But anyway, I think Bowen's the only player who could have been playing up front in that system. So yeah,
Yeah, that's very interesting. Do you
yeah,
think he'll
he
be
might
good
be.
there over the course of the season, or do you think it'll be? I don't know.
I never know with Bowen. Like he did really well last season as well, and I remember in FPL, uh, I just never ended up getting him because I was kept thinking it's not going to last. It's not going to last, and that like punished me badly because then in the end everyone had him in his team, and I didn't because it would just become too late at that point.
Yeah. Well, he's got great
He's
technique. He's got decent instincts, but he does just lack that sort of level of productivity where you're like, put him in a big side, put him in a big side.
yeah, he's one of
I'd
them where
say his
he's
level. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just well, I was just gonna say like probably the same as you, where he's one of them where he's just not quite kind of consistent enough and maybe well rounded enough to play in that top four kind of team. But then when he plays for a team who's pushing for top six or sixth, seventh, eighth, like he really excels. He's kind of in that weird in between.
Yeah, well, I'd say his level is above where West Ham are right now, but yeah, just that lack of sort of top line number consistency
Mm,
year in year out is probably what puts bigger teams off, and possibly the fact that he's
I
come
think so.
from the
Yeah,
lower divisions and worked his way up.
yeah, there is
No
a bit
one,
of
no
that.
one ever signed Vardy in the end.
Yeah,
No one's
yeah,
signed Watkins so far. No one's offered for Watkins. Like
yeah,
it is a bit of a stigma that comes along with them.
yeah.
But who cares as long as they're performing? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you've got to back him to keep it up at this point, really, because there's based on last season as well. There's not really any suggestion that he should drop off. The only thing is whether because West Ham aren't that consistent of a team at the moment, and that obviously will translate to
Yeah,
Bowen a little bit. But the way they play and his role in the team, it's kind of like West Ham don't even need to play that well for him to get numbers at least, because he'll always get a chance or two on the counter, and he's so effective when he's got a bit of space to run into.
yeah, especially in the
Um,
56th minute.
um, yeah, no, I think you've got to back him to keep it up. Really, he's impressive. He's
Yeah.
yeah,
Where
I
are
think I
West
might
Ham in
finally
the
have to get
league
him in my team.
at the moment?
They are ninth. They're 2 points behind Brighton, three behind Newcastle.
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly where we put them in our predictions at the start of the
Ninth,
season, but I think I
10th.
had them 10th. Do you
Yeah.
reckon? Do you still back that, or do you think perhaps they'll move up?
I'd still back it. I think Chelsea look like they're going to improve. I think Chelsea will finish above them over the course of the season. Man United, you've got to assume would improve enough to finish top nine, just based on the players they have and last season. I think Ten Hag will get it together enough to finish in that top nine. I think West Ham looks solid. They're one of those teams where they're solid. They've got threat with the set pieces and stuff, but only based on the quality of the other teams in the league. I think they'll probably struggle to break into
Yeah,
like eighth, seventh kind of territory.
yeah. I can see this season going one or two ways for West Ham. If they don't do well in the Europa and they drop off a little bit in the league and they sit around 11th, 10th, I can see Moyes leaving. Maybe he gets
Yeah,
fired. I don't know. But just based on the level of investment, you expect more. Um, so I could see potentially a manager switch there, and based on who comes in, we'd then have to make our assessments of what we think is going to happen then. Or I think we could just see a slowly sort of fluctuating upward trajectory where they may well get that sort of ninth, eighth place finish. But I think to do that, they would have to probably leapfrog a Brighton, most likely,
yeah,
uh,
that's the thing.
based on how they're playing
Um,
currently, at least. So yeah, it's a tough one with them because they, as you say, they do have the threat and they do come up with results every now and then, but they also just look weirdly vulnerable at times.
yeah, it's that style of play they've got where if you look at the teams above them in the league, um, Brighton, Newcastle, Man United, we'll just forget about because they're fucking weird. But Brighton, Newcastle, Villa, teams that they would want to be in the same bracket as, they all play styles of football where they like to control the game, whether it's controlling the ball or controlling areas of the pitch or whatever. They like to have control and they like things to be in their hands. I feel like with West Ham sometimes things get out of their hands because they've not got that control over games. And while they can defend their box really well, and that's great and effective for them, and while they can get goals from set pieces, and that's great, doesn't feel like that's solid because they never seem to be able to control games, whether it be possession or whatever. And like this Forest game, it seems like they won the game in the end, but it was never really in their control. They had to win it with 2
Yeah.
corners. They had similar expected goals.
Well, perhaps this could be a little bit of a special case because when you look at Nottingham Forest, I've kind of called them the wannabe West Ham for a little bit now. Perhaps
mm,
I'm more correct with that than I thought in terms of maybe they actually based some of their game off West Ham. And so they went there thinking, let's show them who's the best West Ham. And that's why Elanga was so elated when they went ahead because
maybe,
they were like, we're the best West
maybe, yeah,
Ham. But yeah, it was good to see Forest actually put up some numbers away from home, though, and really challenge a team
true, yeah,
further up the league.
yeah. Yeah, I think they've stepped up their level a little bit. I think we kind of both predicted it because they were signing good players and they're clearly ambitious enough to be. They want to be stable in the Premier League. They don't want to be fighting relegation every season.
Yeah.
See that in the signings and it's reflected in their performances. Really, they're not like brilliant, but they're still good at home and they seem to be able to do it away from home a little bit more. So yeah, they seem decent. They should be one of those teams which, come the end of the season, you expect them to be kind of out of the relegation fight if they
Yeah,
continue like
I
this.
think I had them and sort of Bournemouth. I had them kind of lower mid-table, not necessarily
You'll
super
find it, yeah.
relegation threatened, but somewhere around there.
Yeah, I
Um,
think everyone expected them to be
yeah,
sort of all right.
we'll have a look at our Premier League table predictions at the end, I think. But just
Okay.
to go
Um,
on to the next game. Oh,
so
what was
we've
it?
got
1 point for you there. Did you predict a West Ham win?
yeah, I went 2-0,
Okay, and then
and you
three
got
points,
3 for the
5 goal bonus.
correct score and the 5 goals. Yeah. So we've got Villa game and we've got Chelsea City, which was fucking mental.
Yeah. Okay, let's go Chelsea City first. What to say about this? I mean, it was absolutely mental. I thought what's quite interesting actually is City have changed their defensive style of play this year a little bit,
Hmm.
whereas they don't press high up the pitch as much. They obviously still do, but not to the extent that they have previously. Like they're much closer to mid-table this year when it comes to PPDA, which is passes per defensive action, which they
Okay.
allow. And that often, when you have a low PPDA like Liverpool usually do, it comes from pressing really high up the pitch and not allowing the opposition to get moves together before you then win the ball back.
Yeah.
And they're allowing, I think it's around 10 to 12 PPDA, which is more around league average. Yet when they're on the ball, they're still like when you look at the. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you look at those style of play charts that Opta do, I didn't
Yeah,
even
I've seen it.
realise
Yeah.
they were on there at first. They were so far down in that corner
Yeah.
of how slow they play with the ball and how many passes they put into each sequence. I literally didn't even see them. And I thought, wait, where is City? um, so it's quite interesting to see that, and perhaps that is something that stood in Chelsea's favour because they were able to sort of build up from the back a little bit more, which is something they're typically able to do against um, other larger sides compared to maybe an Arsenal or a Liverpool, where it is a little bit more even because Chelsea don't necessarily have the ability to build up. They're looking for those possession sides that aren't necessarily super high pressers. That
Yeah.
is where they probably thrive. And yeah, I think we probably saw that today. Because today, on the weekend, because yeah, they just consistently managed to penetrate through City's midfield, which is a strange thing to say when you got Rodri in there. But they just kept getting between the lines, and
Yeah.
when you get between the lines at City, because they don't have proper fullbacks, you do get a lot of space out wide. And I think yeah, they just kept doing that with Sterling. Um, I think when Mudryk came on, he was a little bit limited, but all the strikers always seem to be getting good positions. Even Jackson managed to get a goal. So, well, I say even Jackson, he has got one of the highest XGs in the league this year. So you've got to give him his props there. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Mad game. I think potentially everyone underestimated Chelsea a little bit with this one. Obviously, everyone had City down to win, which is the right call, really. But I think the signs have been there that Chelsea are slowly getting momentum and slowly starting to get things together for a little while.
Mm.
Um, I don't think anyone thought they'd score 4 goals because they've struggled to score goals all season, and I don't think anyone thought they would beat City. But I think in hindsight, we could have said maybe the signs were there that it would have been closer than we thought.
Yeah, well, the match did
Um,
devolve into madness at a certain point where you kind of had to take a step back and go, this isn't City versus Chelsea anymore. This is 11 like rabid men versus 11 fucking psychotic killers that just are like, we fucking hate you and we hate you, and they're just going at it. And you
yeah,
just saw all structure lost, and it was just chaos towards the end of the game. So I think
yeah,
perhaps while the numbers do reflect a high scoring draw, it doesn't necessarily reflect how the teams play on a more consistent level. Yes, they are both possession sides that create a lot of chances, but they're not typically that defensively sort of vulnerable, and they
yeah,
tend to play the game a little bit slower than that. Whereas it was literally end-to-end football by the end of the game, and I think on another day, City probably do control that game and come out probably 4-2 winners,
yeah.
which you nearly predicted, didn't you? Actually, but then
Yeah, I
you
went 4-1.
and then you went, but will Chelsea score 2 goals against City? Nah.
That's the thing. Yeah, I went 4-1. But yeah, I mean,
You did, I remember you
Chelsea,
contemplating 4-2.
yeah, no one. I just think no one thought Chelsea were going to be able to get goals in the game because City
Yeah.
have been solid, and they've struggled. Chelsea struggled to score. But yeah, like you say, when games open up like that, um, yeah, shit goes
Yeah.
wild.
Well, they had their practice the
Um,
week before with Spurs,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I mean, yeah, it was almost perfect practice for them, wasn't it? And
yeah,
oh, what was I going to say? I think at half time when it was 2-2 at half time, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, I kind of expected at that point City would change something, slow the game down, wear them down, finish it off, maybe a 3-2, 4-2. But
mm,
yeah, it just every time City did something, Chelsea came back, and it just created this
yeah,
atmosphere of chaos.
yeah. It's good to see from Chelsea really because I think like as well as the fact that they've signed all these players and none of them look that clinical in front of goal and stuff like this. One of the criticisms has been that the squad is such a mess that there's like no cohesion and there's kind of a lack of desire and intensity from them and stuff like that. But finally, Pochettino seems to be instilling that kind of hunger and desire and mentality in them that they can go after any game now. They're
Yeah,
starting to look a little bit scary. Like I don't actually know when we play them, but based on their last few games, they don't look like a kind of. Oh, wait, we've already played them. We've already beat them.
yeah.
Hey, hallelujah!
I was
Um,
wondering. I was like, do you not remember?
yeah, no. So yeah, but I think they're going to be based on the kind of intensity and desire that they showed in that game. I think they're going to be like a hard team to beat now because they've lacked
Yeah,
that in the past, but it finally starts to be coming together for them. So Reece James back as well, which is kind of a big one, but I don't know how long is he going to last.
yeah.
It's the
Did
problem.
did did he tear his hamstring against Doku? Was your prediction right, or is he still walking?
Absolutely not. He's still fit.
Yeah, Doku went off in the end. I think actually had their lowest rating probably of anyone in the team. I think he had a yellow card and didn't
Yeah,
really create much, if I
I
remember it
mean,
correctly.
when we were talking about him after he went mad against Bournemouth, we were saying how he's still not a good pick for FPL because you don't even know if he's going to play,
Yeah,
and it is that kind of thing where maybe Grealish is more suited to a game like that because
yeah,
I don't know, yeah, top teams. I don't know, maybe Doku's not got the maturity or something like that, or maybe City when they're playing better teams, they value holding onto the ball a little more because there's more threat coming back their way, and so yeah, I don't know, or maybe it was just an off day for him. Who knows?
yeah. Well, Doku is still producing incredible numbers. I think off the bench, his per 90 numbers is 8.8 completed take-ons per 90, and then from starting it's 5.6, both of which would be the best and are the best numbers in Europe. and are not as
Shit.
high as what they were last season at Rennes when he was also the best in Europe at take-ons. Like it is nuts, isn't it?
Yeah,
Taking on 5+ players a game and beating them
that
successfully.
is mental. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that is
mean, we've
mental.
spoken enough about how great he is, and like he is in that kind of, in terms of talent and output in his early days, he's in that kind of bracket with, I think, I remember reading the list earlier, but it was like Aguero, De Bruyne, Andy Cole, Robinho, um,
Mm,
who else was in there? I can't remember who else was in there off the top of my head, but it was that level of player with
yeah,
and Haaland were the only players to have sort of outperformed him in their first few games, and even then, the players that were above him on that list all had played more minutes than him, pretty much. So,
yeah,
you know, this
yeah.
this is
I mean,
potentially a very very exciting future.
maybe maybe his performance in the game is a reflection of how good a defender Reece James is. To be fair, like he's one of those players which you always forget about because he's constantly injured, but he's still 23, and when
Yeah,
he's
that's
fit,
crazy actually.
he is fucking incredible, isn't he? Really, like when he's had periods of fitness, he looks like one of the best right backs in the
Yeah,
world. Like
under
as a
Conte he looked
defend,
incredible, didn't he? Well, actually
yeah,
no, was he under
and
Conte or was it under? Yeah, it wasn't. Did he was he playing in the side before Lampard came in?
yeah, he's been playing since he was like 18 at Chelsea, I think, starting
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, because I remember there was that period where people were thinking about him as one probably the up there with the best right backs in the world,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
he really did look
he is. If
like
he
it.
can stay fit, he's got the physicality and the technique and everything.
Yeah,
Um,
I think people underestimate the defensive side of his game. You know, if he needs
yeah,
to be, he is a very good defender. It's just because he's
he's really
so good
solid.
at attack that
Yeah,
often that side of his game gets overlooked. But
yeah. That's what
yeah,
makes him
really
so
solid.
impressive, really, isn't it? It's like he doesn't seem to, with most fullbacks, they seem to have one or the other, and then, but he genuinely looks like he could be elite in both areas. It's just a shame he can never stay fit. But yeah, maybe Doku not performing in that game is a reflection of Reece James just being fucking
Yeah,
good.
well, I think if Grealish had started that game, we would have seen a very different game. I think City certainly would have been less vertical. They would have been slower. Um, and Grealish often does drop and help with defence, help almost come into like a left wing back role at times. Um,
Yeah,
and that, if Cole Palmer's dropping deep on that right hand side, then that's someone who's going to mark him out the game or at least hassle him. Whereas Doku, I feel like he probably did at least do that sometimes, but not to the level I believe Grealish would have. And when Grealish did come on, um, you did see him take up that position, sort of on the left-hand side of the box, where he takes about 1,000 touches in a 1 foot square, and just basically makes everyone stand still and watch him touch the ball until he passes it backwards. Which is frustrating to see from what we used to see Grealish do, but
I know, man. It
it
used to be
does
so fun.
serve a great purpose for Pep
Yeah,
Guardiola's sort of positional and possession-based football. So fair play to him. It's just Villa left, isn't it?
yeah. We should probably been here for fucking ever.
Yeah. Somehow we're taking as long over this as we normally do, despite the
Yeah,
fact we've. Well, I suppose because it's all we've got to talk about, we might as well
yeah,
flesh it out. But
yeah. So Villa game, pretty straightforward, really. I think I went.
well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I I think we really gave up control in the second half.
Yeah, true. The second half was, but then we were 3-1 up at that point when Fulham started coming back onto us. We were 3-1 up, so you did have that buffer of a goal. But yeah, we did lose control for a while.
Yeah, because the thing is that first, I think it was 20, 30 minutes. After that, we had about 75% possession, right? And that's not a reflection of how well we played or anything like that. Just in terms of controlling the ball.
Yeah,
And we did actually have that control over the opposition, not just the possession. When we were having that much of the ball, like I think that first half, I don't remember any point being at all worried about Fulham creating opportunities or
no,
scoring
it
goals.
was
There was
entirely comfortable. Yeah,
one opportunity which Esri Konsa pretty easily snuffed out after Castagna had got in behind Dean. And I think we did see I kind of said to you while we were watching it, when Harry Wilson came on, I thought this is where they target Dean. If he keeps coming inside and keeps Dean really narrow, that really opens the left back
Mm.
spot. Um, and Dean hasn't got the kind of pace and physicality to make dying runs out there to block crosses and things. If he's getting pulled in narrow by Wilson, there's going to be space on his outside, and yeah, they just kept creating that kind of uncertainty in our defence, and it was leaving spaces for players to run into. And yeah, it was worrying at times. I think we were lucky Fulham didn't have the individuals to really finish those chances.
No,
Incredible save
like,
though from Martinez
oh my
on
god, yeah,
Jimenez. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Because I think at that point it maybe was 2-1, and that would have been
I think that was
a lot
two
more
0
sketchy.
there.
Yeah, um, yeah. I mean, yeah, we did relinquish control a little bit, and Emery will probably analyse that because I don't know whether it was like I don't know whether it's just complacency because it wasn't like I
No,
felt like Fulham upped their intensity. I just felt like we I don't know we just dropped off for sort
I
of
think we got goal hungry. I think we looked back at those West Ham and Brighton games, and we saw that later on in those games, as the opposition tried more and more to come back into the game, we were able to counter-attack so easily and just score goal upon goal.
yeah
And the problem
yeah
is, if you're doing that and the opposition are not letting those balls through, and that kind of just creates an advantage for them where you're just giving the ball up easily because you're goal hungry and just trying to push for a goal like they are, giving them more of a chance of actually getting back into the game and getting what they want. And the thing is, controlling the game comes part and parcel with seeing the game out and being defensively solid, not just holding the ball. And
yeah
if they're creating opportunities and they're creating spaces by bringing Harry Wilson on and things like that, then you either change the personnel on the pitch to deal with that. Like we were saying, we could have seen Moreno get a few minutes in this game. It would have been good, 2-3-0 up, to have Moreno come on, not the most pressure in the world, get some minutes into his legs. Would have been great to see. But you just want to see a kind of bit more composure from us in that sense, because we did just keep
yeah
giving the ball away, being goal hungry, and we didn't make any defensive changes to deal with them. And then you sort of structure and the kind of way they were coming in,
yeah
creating those
yeah. It was
spaces out wide. So I think maybe we should have just kept the ball a bit, slowed the game down. That's what we did really well in the first half, and I don't know why we didn't fall back to that
yeah.
when we
That's the
started to
odd
lose it.
thing is that Emery's always prioritised control, especially when it comes to the end of games. I remember that Arsenal game last year when we played at home
Yeah,
and the pressure just built and we just allowed them to come on to us. We had no control in the game whatsoever, couldn't keep the ball at all. He's always prioritised closing the games out by slowing it down, keeping the ball, controlling possession. And in the last few weeks, we've I feel like we've seen us been the best we've ever been at it.
yeah.
Um, like you say, in the first half of this game, it was just completely composed, completely controlled. We'd score, but then we just nullified their ability to come back into the game because we controlled the ball so well. And then yeah, don't know what it was. I think it kind of is just like you say, a bit of laziness in the mentality and just thinking, we've got this, that overconfidence, being like we've got this wrapped up. We've scored a load of goals in previous games. We're not going to lose here, and we just got sloppy. Um,
I don't
which
know
is
necessarily if that was the mentality of it. I felt like it was more of a push for goals, more of a like, we've seen us do this against better teams. We know we can score goals. This is the kind of scenario where we do it, where a team's pushing to come back into the
mm,
game. I think it was more that kind of mindset. I don't know how
yeah,
else
no,
to
I
describe it.
agree. I don't think it was laziness. I do think it was potentially overconfidence, though. I think that kind of mindset just comes from the fact that we've had really good form and we've scored a load of goals recently, especially at home. And I
Yeah,
think that can slip into you your mind, and then subconsciously you just get a little bit less careful when it comes to the things, remembering the things you actually need to do to make sure you
Yeah.
win the game.
But I think that that'll come into our experience from game management perspective. Like
Mm,
Unai Emery will talk to them about that and help them understand. Yeah, we might know we can do certain things against certain teams in certain scenarios, but if we'd have held onto the ball there and slowed the game down, right,
yeah,
like we probably should have, then all that pressure that Fulham were putting on us disappears, and then they have to, you know, reorganise their energy somehow, and they'll probably put that into trying to press us. And we love it when teams try and press us because we can then play through them and create the opportunities like we did against West
yeah,
Ham and Brighton. It doesn't just come
yeah,
from counter attacks; it's controlled counter attacks. It's picking those right passes when they open up. And I've got to say, there was periods in that first half where our playing out the back was the best I've ever seen it. Not just in terms of the percentage of passes that came off and, you know, the possession stats and things like that, but just how confident even Cash,
yeah,
Konza, McGinn coming back, Kamara, everyone was in those tight spaces under pressure, just saying, okay, there's three guys in front of me here, all closing down the ball. I'll just turn slightly, pass it back to Konza, who has a bit of a gap to then pass it across to Kamara or Pau or Martinez. You know, it was just so composed and so methodical that you thought, I don't know how Fulham are going to get the ball off us here, like
yeah,
unless we just hoof it up.
yeah. I had the same thought in the first half. It was definitely one of the more controlled and composed performances we put in terms of just the confidence and the comfort with having the ball in sticky situations.
Yeah,
Nobody seemed to even come near to flapping on the ball or hoofing it long when there was a pass on or anything like that. It was super, super composed.
yeah, and we
Um,
played through the
which,
lines amazing as well. It wasn't even
yeah,
like typically we're looking for players to press us so we can play out the back like we did. But even when I think the goals were scored, it wasn't necessarily that we broke on a counter or we broke through their press or anything like that. It was just slow, methodical building up, slowly moving up the pitch, even letting their defence reset at times. It was just gaining that territory to then get in positions where we can create chances from while they still had a bit of a low block in place.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, really, really impressive. Did you want to say anything else? I was gonna. I'll finish off with a little something. But
Um, well, there's not much more to say about the game, really. I mean, I suppose Tielemans got his first start in the league and was one of our better players, I thought.
yeah, well,
Um,
yeah. I suppose we talk about individuals.
Tielemans pressed really well off the ball. He seems to be fitter, to be honest. He seems to have,
Yeah, he did look like he was running more.
he was sharp. He was fast. I was like, is that Tielemans? Like, he's fast. I was like, I've never seen Tielemans run that fast before.
Yeah, who was it he ran round? Was it
Well, he was
Polina
kind
or
of playing
something
on the
on the
left.
right or something?
He was playing on the left, sort of. He was playing like the Jacob Ramsey role, but
Yeah,
he got wide quite a few times actually in the channel and took the fullback on, and he looked fast.
yeah. I remember. I think
Um,
someone got a yellow card for taking him down when he had literally just blitzed past them, and I was like,
yeah,
hang on a minute, Tielemans can do that.
yeah.
It's like
No, that's
what?
the thing. Yeah, he looked fitter. He looks more confident. He looks more assured in his role. I think this is the thing
Yeah,
with like writing players off too early is that Emery spoke in the post match about Tielemans and how it's taken him a while. Not only fitness, he did talk about fitness, I think, but also just familiarity with the system. And I think probably from an outside perspective, as just people who watch football, we don't really have an appreciation of how difficult it is to fit yourself into a completely new role, completely new system. Like at this top level, systems are so important and they're so complex. Like, um, yeah, we probably don't have an appreciation of how difficult that probably is. But it looks like he's finally grasping the role. Was a big part of the game. Was a big part of our build up. Got an assist for the first goal. Yeah, just looked fucking good, and it's good because I feel like, especially while Ramsey is still injured, we can do with all the options we can get in those kind of attacking forward positions, especially because Zaniolo doesn't seem to be like he's not really producing in terms of assists and stuff. It's good to have a player like Tielemans performing because
mm,
we know that great technique. Like we know that he can put a good ball into the box, kind of thing. Like it's good to have that option rather than just another kind of Zaniolo Bailey who can run really well. Sorry, Bailey. He's good. He's good again. But it's good to have one of those players who he's not just a dribbler to come off the bench and run at people. Like he's a good option to have in terms of actually creating stuff.
Yeah. Well, with Tielemans, we kept saying, didn't we, that yeah, he doesn't quite look right, but he's just not perhaps being played in the right position in the right games. We
Yeah,
know from his time at Leicester that he's got the quality, he's got the Premier League experience. We know it's there. We just need to
yeah.
see him pull it out in his performances, and
Yeah, he
that
just always looked a little bit lost when he played.
just
He
comes
always
down
just
to his
looked like
role.
it. Yeah, he just looked a bit unfamiliar with what he was doing. Didn't know where he needed to be on the pitch, kind of thing. But he just looked like he's finally settled into a role, and he looked amazing. And then I suppose if we're talking about individuals, you got to talk about John McGinn for this game, really, haven't you?
Oh,
He's
oh.
fucking insane.
What was I saying earlier? 7 dribbles completed, 15 duels won, more than any other player has achieved this season in the league for any team. A captain's performance. And
Yeah, that's the thing with him. I just love his intensity on the pitch. He's just fucking mental, pressing everyone, flying into tackles, progressing the ball. He just like impresses me every time I watch him. It's like, how are you this good? It doesn't make any sense, but you're just brilliant.
yeah, he's kind of one of those players that you know what he's going to do, but you can't stop it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see it. He like projects it a mile off. Like defenders can see it 10 minutes before he's even got the ball. What John McGinn is going to do when he gets there, but
Yeah.
that fat ass of they're beautiful. They're just too much.
Do you know what he does that I really, really like is he'll delay on the ball, but he won't do it like a lot of other players will do it. A lot of other players, when they delay on the ball, they'll kind of let it roll in front of them and they'll be scanning a lot. And they might
Mm,
go for a dummy, maybe two, before they eventually play it. And that can confuse opposition players. But what McGinn will do is he'll start moving the ball towards the opposing players. And he'll start almost doing that kind of like slow stutter like players do for penalties, and because his feet are
yeah,
moving quick and they're ready to kick the ball at any moment, players are just so confused as what he's going to do, and then they'll start sort of making a lunge somewhere, and he'll just put it into the space, use his body to block the player, and
yeah,
just push through. And his passing's bit really improved under Emery as well. Like
yeah.
that
That's the
it's,
impressive thing with him, I think.
yeah, that moment where he's running directly at Polina and just uses the congested side of the field to just completely move him out of the way without even having to
Yeah,
barely do anything, and then
yeah,
just have a free shot at goal outside the box
yeah.
and bang it bottom corner. Just shows how
Man, his
far he's
goal
come.
was like impressive. I think
Such
it's one of
strange
them that
technique as well.
yeah, it's one of them where go under the radar kind of goal. It's kind of just a shot from the edge of the box, which you'd expect Premier League players to be good at. But the way he sold Paulinho with absolutely zero effort whatsoever was just so silky, and his technique was a bit odd on the shot. Like he kind of got underneath the ball. It had a little bit of lift, but then it just dipped. Really, like barely got off the ground, but it kind of looked like it should have come further off the ground. It was hit with a lot of power, but there was also a lot of curl, and it kind
Yeah,
of sneaked into the side net, and it was beautiful.
he's one of the only players that has an affinity for doing kind of the opposite of what he's supposed to do, curling it, because he curls it into the wrong corner, doesn't he? It's like it's
Yeah, yeah,
strange,
yeah, he does. Yeah,
but he just
he scored
knows
a
how to
similar
do
goal
that.
against
He's
Chelsea,
obviously,
actually.
yeah, he's practiced that enough
That's
where
yeah.
he knows that. Just to touch on a couple of individuals, Musa Diaby, little bit disappointing in this game. He still got involved, he still performed well, but just compared to what we expect, he just seemed a level below. I think
Yeah,
perhaps maybe because he's such a good talent and because he's got so many physical gifts in terms of his speed and agility and balance. Perhaps he's been playing proportionally more on instinct than necessarily instruction so far, and just been
mm,
told, you know, within these kind of guidelines, hang about Ollie, play left wing, right wing, centre forward, wherever you find the space, and kind of have that freedom to go at it. But perhaps, we might see these occasional dips in games where he can't quite find that. And I
yeah.
think
I
throughout
think
the
with
season he'll
Diaby,
probably improve.
yeah, I think with Diaby it might be a case of he will really show his best in harder games. Um, he does kind of look like he's just hanging around the box at the moment. And when he gets in those positions, his technique is brilliant when he gets on the ball and stuff. But in games where we dominate the ball and teams sit back and there's not a lot of space on the pitch, he does seem to be a little bit less effective. But I think just because of how good he is, when there's games which are harder and there's a bit more space, then that's probably where he'll really excel. Um, it's
Yeah,
kind of fine for it to be kind of just playing as like a second striker and getting in the box at the right times and sticking the ball in the net most
yeah, he's
games.
been
You know,
pretty
like
decent on that.
yeah, he's been still getting goals, still getting the odd assist. I don't mind if he doesn't blow us away every week, but I think
Yeah,
when you know when you're signing a player like that for like 50 odd million, whatever we paid, a player of that level, that quality, you're really signing them for the moments where it really really matters in the really really tough games, and I think that's when we'll see him really come out of his shell, kind of thing.
yeah. Well, I love Diaby. I think he's great. He's got so much to his game, both from a technical and sort of power and pace perspective. You know, counter-attacking, running in behind, that sort of thing. But I haven't been blown away by him as of yet. No individual
No,
performance has blown me away as of yet, and I think that's because he hasn't had a chance to show those sort of dribbling capabilities on the, out wide and taking players on and getting in behind because he's been in more congested areas. He's had to show his
yeah,
technical side a little bit more, which, while it's very good, he hasn't necessarily had to do that a lot where he's played before. In transitional leagues like the Bundesliga, Bayer Leverkusen, he will have always had so much opportunity to get in behind and make those runs and make those dribbles. So
yeah,
having that slightly different role now in a league that is more physical as well, he's not going to see as much success. So I think we often see the ball get played into him um, in between sort of the fullback and the centre back, and he wants to run through, but often he hasn't quite timed the run right or the pass isn't quite right, and he ends up having to stop on it. Maybe even come back for it, might be offside, passes it off, which he's still very good at, and because he is such a good technical player, it's kind of fine, to be honest. But
mm,
I think at some point, whether it's because we haven't got enough attackers to play a proper two up front, and we eventually want to move him out to the right, or whatever it is, I think at some point in some games we will see him given slightly different roles, especially if Bailey gets more game
yeah.
time. Um, well, this has happened three in a row now. But yeah, well, I think we'll see him that side of his game come out more, especially when we get into sort of knockout Conference League games if we do get there.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's got that kind of composure and technique about him where you know in big moments he'll be there and he's got it in him for the big moments, and we just haven't really had that yet because we have been dominating games really well. He's not had those transitional moments, but like at the same time, there's nothing to suggest that he's not got it in him to do it in big games and kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Well, even today, just
um,
just from his positioning and things like that in and around the box, while he may not have put in a blowing away performance where he's running past players, etc., he was in position really to score two goals today. He should have
yeah,
probably scored that first one. It was unlucky slash poor finish. He's probably got to work on that, knowing that in the Premier League each chance counts a little bit more, because the quality of opposition, etc. And then that one where the ball's whipped in by Tielemans, it does come off him obviously before it hits Anthony Robinson.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can really change about that goal. I think like
No, his
it was
positioning is
just
good. It's kind
yeah
of hard chance.
yeah it was just tough. You can't really blame him for that one. But yeah, he's getting in the right positions frequently. He's getting in goals and assists. He's clearly a great player. So I've got absolutely no worries. But there have been, I think I saw at least one article about him being potentially dropped for Bailey just because Bailey has looked so good. Um,
I just can't see it to be honest.
I mean, I wouldn't be
Um,
surprised against Spurs just because they don't have a doggy. Do they? Actually, do they have a doggy? Because it was two yellows.
Doggy's back.
Yeah, they will have a doggy.
Yeah, but
Maybe.
I
I'm
don't
not
think
sure.
Diaby's getting dropped for Spurs. Like Spurs like to keep the
I,
ball.
I
Very good
wouldn't.
at keeping the
Yeah.
ball.
I mean, I wouldn't. But it's certainly something that's been discussed, and I don't. I think there's valid points there. If you're not going to put Tielemans into a game, perhaps you don't want to have as much control. I think a game like Tottenham, bringing Bailey on over Zaniolo, for example, having a Bailey um, Diaby, McGinn, Watkins sort of front four type situation. I think, especially
Oh yeah,
if
no, I
we
think
want to play on the counter, that would be a
Bailey's
very
Bailey's
dangerous.
up, but I wouldn't. I'd still have Diaby in there as well. I wouldn't. I wouldn't
Yeah,
do the like for like. I think Bailey. There's basically for me in our starting 11 now. There's basically one spot which could be occupied by Zaniolo, Bailey, or Tielemans, depending on who we're playing.
yeah,
Because McGinn's always playing. For me, Diaby is always playing. Um, so yeah, I think there's an argument for Bailey against Tottenham. To be fair, in that kind of slot, because they likely will keep more possession than us, and we'll be looking for goals on the transition, on the counter. So
yeah.
having Bailey's pace in there will be valuable, and
It
probably
would
more valuable.
be,
I think.
yeah. It'd be interesting to see, does Bailey get that false nine off the right role where he's so effective, or do they bring him onto that left hand side in the more sort of progressive ball carrying role?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of really complicated. I feel like they'll obviously do their analysis, and
Mm,
it'll take them a lot to analyze what's the best move there, because it's kind of too hard for us to say really in my mind, because I think there'll be lots of tiny things that they're looking at in terms of the way we play and the way Tottenham play, in terms of whether it's better to put, because McGinn on that right hand side is brilliant. I think that's his best position when he can push up the pitch and play on the right.
yeah.
When he's on the left, he's definitely less effective. Um,
Well, I
but
was
whether
thinking more in terms of Diaby perhaps stepping into that left slot and
right, okay,
keeping McGinn on that right hand side of midfield, and perhaps Diaby and Bailey being the right centre forward and
yeah,
left
again, I don't
midfield.
know. Maybe outright pace and directness, Bailey might be more useful, more central kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, I'd say that. I think
okay,
Diaby's probably more versatile given his technical ability and given the
definitely,
fact
yeah,
that he's
yeah,
two-footed, and
yeah.
could probably benefit from playing a game out wide, just to remind himself of how quick he is, at least. Um, and yeah, Bailey has just looked so good in those areas, just off Ollie on the right, that
Yeah,
if you are going to start him, I think you let him play there.
yeah,
To be
potentially,
fair,
yeah. It's interesting. I think it's probably going to be the most interesting game we've. I mean, we won't go into it too much because we'll preview it in the next one, but probably going to be one of the most interesting, probably the most interesting game of the season for us, because I think they've been really good. They've also got some injuries, but they've been really good. They play a very distinct style, and I'm very interested to see what Emery comes up with in terms of
yeah,
um, hitting that.
I can see us either like absolutely spoiling a Spurs party and winning like convincingly, not necessarily
Yeah,
having amazing control in the game. I think we'll probably let them have the ball,
yeah.
but
No, I could see that. Yeah,
I could either see that or a very tense
yeah,
draw. Potentially, someone just wins on like a sort of good moment in the final minutes.
yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I think we've definitely got the potential to undo them, because Emery is just a tactician, and he's good at exploiting weaknesses, especially with their injuries. But at
Yeah,
the same time, like based on just how generally how good they've been, and the fact that they're at home and they've still got a lot of good players, especially up front and in midfield, it could equally be very very cagey and just come down to one team nicking it,
yeah,
on a bit of luck or whatever.
yeah. Well, anyway, as I said, we'll leave that for next week. What
Yeah,
does that bring the tallies to for predictions this week?
29-37.
Oh, how many? What
So
is
it's
it? How many did we get each this week?
I got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9.
Okay. Oh, so I just extended it by one.
Yeah, you got the the fifth goal bonus for the West Ham
Yes.
game. Got you
That,
the extra point, but yeah, pretty good week for both of us. Really didn't really change anything.
yeah, no, we're
Um,
looking good at this. I'm thinking I need to put more time into betting and these sorts of things. That, Opta have a couple of competitions they do where you can win a decent amount of
yeah,
money.
I mean it's worth like a couple of quid on a weekend
Yeah, just
probably.
just have like a folder on your phone that's just like Super Six, FPL,
Yeah, just all the free games
Opta.
and that.
Yeah, just give it a go.
Yeah,
And if you start doing well, stick some bets on.
yeah. Yeah, no, we're not doing bad. We're not doing bad. But we got predictions next week. Obviously, we should probably wrap it up because it's long as shit this episode.
Yeah, well, we'll quickly go over what did we actually predict for that Villa game because I don't think we actually went over that.
Oh, I went 2-0 Villa. We both went for the clean sheet.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, there was nothing to suggest that we would like lose control of the game like we did. To be fair, so I think the clean sheet was a good call. But both went clean sheet. I went 2-0. You went 3-0.
Mm.
So
And did you find the league table prediction we did? Because I suppose quarter way through is a good.
I didn't, but it's,
Oh,
it's
okay.
like it's in this book, right? But I can never fucking find it. But I know that it's on one of these pages. Right, give me just count to 10.
Um,
If I not find it, then I'll give up.
well, I'll quickly talk about how I think Villa are quite a similar team to Liverpool.
Oh
And I think we
yeah,
will be the sort of next Liverpool in a way. While Unai Emery has definitely, I think, accumulated more points and more points per game than Klopp did when he started at Liverpool, there's a
yeah,
lot of similarities in our style of play and how adaptive we are. If you look at things like the build-up attacks, Liverpool are a side that like to hold a lot of possession, but they're second to us in the league for build-up attacks. So they do create those sort of opportunities where they hold the ball, they wait. When the opportunity comes, they attack at pace, and they
I
have that
found it.
high line just like we do, contracting the pitch, making it really, really difficult for the opposition to progress the ball. When you look at XG conceded and scored and things like that, we're right next to them in pretty much every stat other than XG, attacking XG from set plays. Everything else, we're basically right next to each other. Um, I think, yeah, there's just a lot of similarities. The way that they're able to play possession football, but also be great on the counter. The only
Mm,
the only style difference I'd say is that we don't press so high up the pitch and with such intensity as they do.
yeah, I mean that's the hallmark of Liverpool, really, isn't it? Is their like super
Yeah,
intense press you don't
yeah.
have.
I think that's where we differ slightly. But generally, we are very, very similar, and I that can only really be a good thing, seeing how far Liverpool have come. I think,
Yeah, man, I'll fucking take that.
yeah,
Jesus.
the small differences in the underlying stats, at least that I've seen, I think probably come down to the size and quality of the squad. Because if we've got say two
Yeah,
full starting 11s that are Premier League quality like Liverpool do, or they usually
yeah,
do, at least you can afford to play with that intensity in both the Champions League and the Premier League, and you can afford as much rotation and that sort of thing. And that's where we can see those improvements potentially in the future. But
yeah.
we never know what
They've
Emery's
got
got
those
planned.
they've got those like top level elite players as well dotted about the squad where we maybe in 2 years time if we can get a Champions League finish and then you can attract proper elite talent, maybe we can start getting some of those players in our squad. But yeah, like we've got no one who's quite in the same bracket as Van Dijk, Salah, etc.
Yeah, apart from
Um,
John McGinn, but
obviously goes without saying.
do you know what? I
Best
think
player in the
John
Premier
McGinn
League.
would be great at Liverpool.
Fuck, he would. Klopp would absolutely love his
Yeah,
pressing and his
but
desire and his
let's not
tackling.
say
And
that ever again because we don't want to
no,
tempt fate.
fuck,
He's not
I'd
leaving.
cry. I'd
Touch wood.
cry.
Um, one thing I
Right.
did.
So
There's one last thing I wanted to say, and it was about the fact that Arsenal apparently have just been alerted to interest in Ruben. Not Ruben. Is it Ruben? Ruben Neves? Was it Wolves? Is that his first
yeah,
name? Ruben.
yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know
yeah,
why I've had João in my head there. Bloody Portugal. But yeah, Ruben Neves is apparently potentially available in January, and if they did go for him, that would probably signal an end to their interest in Douglas Luiz, or at
yeah,
least, if not that, an end to any potential interest Douglas Luiz had in Arsenal, because with the amount of midfielders they would then have, that you kind of have to say would be starters, there's no way he'd be interested in moving there.
no, yeah. That'd be nice if they can bugger off. To be fair, I think we've stepped it up to a level now where I don't even know if he'd leave because we're literally a couple of points behind him. Obviously, there's like the prestige thing, and they are actually in the Champions League, whereas we're not.
Yeah.
But I think it's very hard for a player to leave Villa in January anyway. Like maybe summer, based on how we actually finish. But I can't see us losing anyone significant in January, to be honest, because I just think
Oh
we're
yeah,
we're
no,
playing
no.
well. That
But
there's
those rumours were swirling, and I think we can
Yeah,
safely
they
say
always
they're
do, don't they?
put to bed
They've
now.
obviously liked him for a while, but yeah, if they look like they're signing someone else, then yeah, that'd be good if they can bugger off that. So, well, I haven't actually found the league table. I
Oh,
found my league table. I didn't write them both down.
oh, for God's sake! So we have no idea what mine is.
No,
I swear, maybe I've got mine. Let's.
I mean, I kind of vaguely remember writing it down, maybe, but maybe it's somewhere else. But I've got mine, and I'll
Oh,
go over a few that stand out.
I've actually got mine as well.
Oh, sound. Yeah, well, I won't go through the whole thing because we'll be here forever. But
I've got one
I've got
howler in
United
here
in
at
third,
least.
which is a bit
Yeah,
of
that
a.
was my howler as well. United in third.
I mean, I think they will improve and they might finish like maybe sixth, but they. I mean, to be fair, I don't think anyone
Actually,
predicted how bad it would be. It's
let's.
kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I want to compare exactly what the table is now to what we've sort of predicted.
Yeah, mine's not too bad. Spurs are obviously a lot better than people anticipate they'd be.
Yeah.
Um,
So City top,
mine's
I've got
pretty
City
good.
top. Arsenal second, they're
Yeah.
third. United third, they're sixth. I've got Liverpool fourth, they're second. I've got Villa fifth. I've got Newcastle sixth, they're in seventh. I've got Brighton seventh, they're in eighth. Chelsea eighth, 10th. Tottenham ninth, they're in fourth. 10th West Ham in ninth. Brentford 11th, they're 11th. Crystal Palace 12th, they're 13th. Fulham 13th, they're not even on my screen. 16th. 14th Burnley, they're bottom, that was bad. Bournemouth 15th, they are 17th. Nottingham Forest 16th, they are 15th. And Wolves 17th, they are 12th. Everton 18th, they are 14th. Sheffield United 19th, they're 19th. Luton 20th, they're 18th. So,
Not
couple
bad.
clangers in there, but for the most part, I'm fairly happy.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar to yours. To be fair, I've got Spurs eighth. They're obviously doing better than people expected.
Yeah.
I think mine, yeah, they're very similar to yours. There's no standout clangers except United in third. Spurs are doing a lot better than I thought. And Wolves, I've got Wolves 18th.
Yeah, my
Did
Everton
not
and Wolves
did not
so
see Wolves
far
being
aren't looking
good.
great, but I suppose Everton aren't. Actually, my worst is Burnley. Then I think it's
Yeah,
sort of joint between Spurs, United, and Everton. If they can
yeah,
all revert to where I want them to be, that'd be great.
yeah, yeah. No, but generally pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
Generally decent.
given how long this has gone, probably best to sign off there. So yeah, I'm not going to be as rude to you guys if you are. I say
I
you
think you should
guys.
be more rude because this one's even longer, and if anyone is still here, then like you really need to lay into it at this point because Christ.
No, I was going to try and go John Fury mode and just be like, "You does it!" No, yeah, it's just what you're doing. To be fair, that's 2 hours of your life wasted. Good luck, mate. If that's how you spend your time, like, what you doing? But I mean, we've just sat here for 2 hours talking about football.
We've had a great time.
Yeah, this is our only sort of free time of the week. This is what we choose to do. So respect that.
Basically,
Respect
yeah.
that. Subscribe. We actually got a like last week. Well, I haven't checked it.
Did we?
I haven't checked it. Do you know what? Do you know what? We've gone this long. I can afford an extra minute to check how last week's video did, and let the people know. Actually, do you know what? Fuck that. No. Bye.
Bye.